Welcome to Beat Everyone. I am producer Matt Scalici stepping in today for our regular host, Ben Flanagan. We are now rapidly approaching the sort of 2/3 of the way through the season mark. And we look up after having spent the first few episodes of this football season in I'll admit it, panic mode, spiraling, concerned about the future of the program. We look up now, and Alabama is 4-0 in SEC play, 4 straight wins against ranked opponents, and heading into a very interesting sort of back stretch of the season. And we're going to talk a little bit about that today, as well as kind of the remaining stretch of the schedule for Alabama. We're gonna be bringing in our good friend, columnist Michael Casagrande, to talk about all of that. Michael, one thing I want to kind of set up here. You're a longtime Alabama beat writer. You are, I would say, really one of the veterans
Oh
of
God,
that beat at this point, right? An emeritus of some kind. Is that what we would use?
gosh, I mean, making me feel old right off the bat. I mean, come on. I'm not even a
but
B writer, man.
but you're now
I
you're
was
now
one.
a statewide columnist, and you write about both Alabama and Auburn,
Correct.
which I think, as much as maybe Alabama fans don't want to admit this, they do keep up with Auburn. They pay attention to it. It matters in this state. Um, let's start there. Let's start at Alabama's final regular season game, because we know it looms large in the consciousness of this fan base, and it's not going well at the other end of the state right now. Can you kind of characterize where things are right now and what we might be on the precipice of, possibly even before the Iron Bowl?
I mean, it's setting itself up for a heartbreaking Iron Bowl loss for the Crimson Tide because
Well, you
no,
joke, but I think there's a
no.
lot of paranoia about that.
I mean, Auburn can't. Yeah, Auburn's having a tough time. They can't really find their offense. They can't win games. Hugh Freeze can't figure it out. It's a spiral of misery in Auburn right now. I was there on Saturday night for the Missouri game, and it was just you can kind of see resignation in the looks of fans. They they got teased at the end. They got excited. I mean, the place was rocking. End of the fourth quarter, overtime. You would have thought that was an undefeated team, and that's kind of been the
Yeah,
crux of
that's
what I've
very
written.
characteristic of that fan base. I mean, you and I have been at games there where we're talking about it was like a 6-6 team, or maybe even worse, and that place gets as loud as any stadium you could imagine.
It does, and that's what they don't deserve this. Like they're good fans. I know listeners of this podcast might not want
you
to hear
you
this.
probably have some contention from our
Yeah,
listeners, but yeah.
yeah. But I mean, they're very loyal. I mean, they were place was packed out.
Mhm.
This team was on a 3-game losing streak, losing its fourth to Missouri, and you couldn't have closed your eyes and guessed that's where you were in that moment. There are a lot of places that would be voting with their attendance. They'd be sending a message by having empty stadiums to tell an AD what they think of a coach. Place was rocking. Um, they had belief in a team that there's no real reason to have belief in. There's no, they have given you no reason to believe. Hugh Freeze has given you no reason to believe he is the guy for the gut job. You take his name off that, you take away those 2 wins against Alabama in 14-15. If you just blind taste test this, it's worse than Harson because he's got talent that Harson didn't. We could go
for
all day.
for now
I've
for now he has it, and I think that may be an element of this that Alabama fans may take a closer interest in the future. As we know, when a coaching change gets made these days, it is a bit of a free for all for the for the free market, and there's a lot of attractive pieces on that Auburn roster that I'm sure Alabama would be interested in taking a look at if they become open to move around. But so look, that's looking. I mean, I don't think Alabama fans are ever going to feel safe going into an Iron Bowl, but it's looking a little bit more promising, a little bit less dangerous. It's still, I would say, a really, really good defense. Every time I watch
Oh
them,
yeah,
those
it's
guys are
got great defense.
terrifying.
That's what that gets lost in all this. Is it's really good defense. I mean, they were shutting down and they shut down Georgia to 20 yards in the first 28 minutes of that first half.
They really had Georgia on the ropes in that game for quite
Yeah,
a while. Yeah.
they did. Um, and and then they looked pretty good against Missouri for good stretches. I mean, Ahmed Hardy had a lot more carries than he did against Alabama, and still had about 60 something yards. I mean, they were really it's a pretty good defense. I mean, it's not perfect, but they're losing games 20-17, 23-17. It's they're not getting a Hugh Freeze offense to score enough points to beat teams with the offense with what the defense is giving them. That's it's I don't want to oversimplify things, but it's like you're Hugh Freeze, you know? You you changed the way offensive football is played in the Southeastern Conference, and now 10 years later, who are you?
Yeah, no, for sure. It's hard to see exactly what he's contributing right now. And look, he may not be contributing at all much later. But so look, that is a game that will happen, and we'll talk more about it as we get closer to it. But Michael, a couple other SEC games, really, well, three other SEC games remaining on the schedule for Alabama, and I'd like to go through these three first, just to kind of take stock of where they all are at this point heading into this final stretch. Obviously, you have South Carolina this weekend, which is a road game for Alabama, and then two home games at Bryant Denny Stadium against LSU and Oklahoma. I think preseason, when Ben and I kind of looked at the schedule and circled the ones we were most concerned about, I think probably all three of these would have been on the list of games that were higher concern. What do you think, just based on how the year has played out for those three so far? Let's go through those, and where are those teams at right now?
Well, South Carolina, that was a team when I did my preseason run through the schedule. I did a column about it, and I picked South Carolina to beat Alabama based on the momentum of that program, the way they looked in Bryant Denny. I mean, they came as close to. I mean, I remember writing a column that got a lot of angry responses. That I said that win over South Carolina was uglier than the loss to Vanderbilt because it was just a disgusting game, like just all over the place, just horrible turnovers. They looked like
Easily could have lost the game, really. If I'm not
yeah,
mistaken, probably could have run the ball at the end and kicked a field goal and beaten Alabama, and instead they throw a pick, sort of inexplicably, right?
there was some weirdness. Yeah, I'm
Yeah.
trying to remember it all. It was like a little league football game. It was you couldn't walk away from that feeling good, even in a victory for Alabama. I thought it was just one of the low points of a season that had a few of them. So I thought that South Carolina they were going to get them at home, possibly a night game. I think preseason it was like a 3:30 or a night game. That place is a pretty intimidating place for a night game. Um, well, South Carolina has not had a good season. What are they, 3-4?
They're 3-4 overall, 1-4 in SEC play. I mean, definitely some of those have been close, but some of them have really not been. They've had some blowout losses in SEC play.
Yeah, Lenora Sellers. I remember in my preseason, I had to pick a dark horse for the Heisman, and I was like, everyone's talking about Arch Manning. How about Lenora Sellers? Oof, not been there. It's still a dangerous. That's the thing. We could say all that to say this. Like in the SEC, the mar the the spectrum of possibilities is wide to where
Hmm.
and you would have said in the past that Alabama wins this game 9 times out of 10. Um, just looking at the records, looking at just the overall, it's still like 6 out of 10 now. Like they're still they have the potential, they have the players, and Alabama, the talent gap is closed to the point where in almost any of these games, it's not unreasonable to think that South Carolina could win this game with 13-point spread or whatever. So it's Alabama's been here before. They felt overconfident going into games. I guess it's another test. They passed the test against Vanderbilt. They passed the test against Missouri. All these like road games, overlooking certain non-brand names. They've passed certain tests ever since the aberration of Florida State. Um, so I mean, it's a game they should win, but like it's not a game that there's no game. There are no games anymore that you can pencil in and say like no doubt.
Sure. Well, you wonder too. I think especially with this game, the and coming off a stretch of 4 games like Alabama has just played, the physical toll that that takes, not to mention just the amount of focus. As much as we'd like to believe that these guys are superhumans, it's tough for anybody to maintain that level of intensity and focus all the time. Nick Saban used to talk about it constantly of that's really the harder part. It's not getting up for the biggest game of your career. It's staying up for the weeks that you really don't have as much emotional investment in. I think that'll say a lot about this Alabama team is after that 4-week stretch you've just played, what do you look like coming out the week before this bye week that those guys have got to be looking forward to against a team that I don't think, and you're not going to find anybody in America saying that South Carolina is going to upset Alabama. I mean, maybe from a point spread standpoint, but I don't. There's not going to be a lot of doubters you can easily grab onto.
Yeah, I mean it. I don't know if it reminds you at all of Oklahoma last year where they were on a they come off that win against they beat LSU on the road. I think the Missouri game was after that. So they were like at a peak of like other than beating Georgia early in the year when turnaround and lost to Vanderbilt. I guess at some point we'll stop comparing this team to last year's team, and if they can keep checking the boxes that the last one didn't. But yeah, I mean it's a certain mental challenge that they're going to have to face. It's got to be exhausting the physical toll of the last 4 games. Like nobody's ever beaten 4 straight ranked SEC teams in consecutive weeks without a bye. Um, South Carolina's not ranked now, but they had the talent, the potential to be ranked earlier in the season, and if they can put that together, because no one thinks that this is a 3-4. You know, it's a team that is better than 3-4. That is maybe do one. So you can't overlook anybody. This is not Vanderbilt of 2017. There's nobody. There are no commas on the schedule anymore.
Let's move to LSU, which will come after a bye week, a much needed bye week for Alabama. LSU is similarly, I would not at the same level yet, but certainly disappointed by how things have gone so far. 5-2 overall, 2-2 in SEC play, and really, I think it feels Michael like one of those situations where I'm sure, like it is at Alabama, when you reach the multi-loss point of a season like that, there's a lot of hand wringing. There's a lot of people getting upset and saying something fundamentally has to change. But the two teams they've lost to are teams that are being talked about as legitimate playoff contenders, which are Ole Miss and Vanderbilt. It's kind of one of those like it's just like that sometimes in this conference. I don't know that it necessarily. I mean, we can get into some of the specific weak points of this LSU team, but it's not like these guys have some tremendously embarrassing losses on the record so far. They've only lost to two very good teams.
Yeah, I mean Auburn hasn't lost to a bad team either, but they're also
That's true. Yeah.
where they are. I mean, you are. I mean, you are kind of who you are when you are in your biggest moments, and when if you can't pass your biggest test, then like that's the difference between a good team, a Citrus Bowl team, and Tampa Outback, whatever they call it now, bowl team, or a playoff team, and they're they haven't answered the bell. I mean, they beat Clemson earlier in the year, and that was a huge opening week statement, and Clemson is little Clemson again. So it's not something to be that proud of. But yeah, I mean they haven't had the offense they wanted. Garrett Nussmeier's been banged up all year. He was like Sellers, a preseason Heisman kind of guy, banged up all year. They can't run the ball for anything. I mean, it's like who is LSU if they can't run the ball? Defense, I guess, has been keeping them in games, but it's not the expectation to the point where you're hearing people talking about the buyout of Brian Kelly's guaranteed contract that was like ironclad, and is it worth 50 million or whatever it is to send him back to the Midwest. I don't know. Tough.
or wherever. But yeah, I mean, I think LSU is in a we know the mentality of that program. We know they share a lot in common with Alabama in terms of their expectations for their coaches, and we're now it's also a weird situation because they have they have been through what feels like a lot of coaches in the past couple of decades, but those guys also all won national championships except for Brian Kelly. So it's just such an impossible standard to live up to. That said, Alabama has done very well against LSU the last couple of years outside of that first year for Brian Kelly where they upset Alabama in Baton Rouge. Alabama has won both on the road at home and at home against this team. And it does, it's hard to know how much carryover there is from year to year. But is there something similar to the Georgia factor where we just say like sometimes some other programs kind of got your number a little bit?
Well, it's possible. I think from what I remember last year's Alabama LSU game, that was like the peak of Milroe's his best performance.
And
He
maybe the
was
year before too for Milroe also.
Yeah, he was running. He ran all over him.
Yeah.
And he ran for like 200 something, maybe 200 yards. If not, he had a couple big long runs. Like at least what troubled LSU defensively last year is not Alabama's offense at all this year. So um, if there's some solace for LSU, they don't have to see a running quarterback or a quarterback who runs as much as he does. So yeah, I mean, it's kind of different teams. I'd still give Alabama the edge, just given the trajectory of both. I think they both have open weeks heading into it. LSU needs it from a health standpoint. Alabama they could all use one at this point. But Nussmeyer's has kind of been banged up. They've got talent, and that's kind of the problem. Is they anytime it's like similar to Penn State, the amount of investment that went into this year's team, the NIL expectations, and the more you invest, the more they feel like they've ponied up to get a championship winning team. When that doesn't meet expectations, there's even more of a burden on coach, everybody to deliver. There's more anger.
And just a footnote on that I'm sure we'll get more into when that week arrives. But the last year of this being an annual rivalry for Alabama and LSU, which is a sad thing for me for a fan who's enjoyed this game for the past especially since Saban got involved at Alabama. But uh, Michael, the last one I want to talk about out of these games is maybe the weirdest one and the toughest one for me to get my head around, which is Oklahoma. It's in Tuscaloosa this year. Alabama, obviously, it was kind of the nail in their coffin last season, that game. I think everybody, as you said, they saw Alabama seeming to peak, seeming to hit a high point for sort of all around, and then they go up to Oklahoma and really lay an egg on both sides of the ball. Maybe a slightly better defensive performance, but just a totally flat performance in that game when it really mattered and Alabama was on the edge of making it into the playoffs. What is this Oklahoma team? What is their deal this year, Michael? Because we've seen them seemingly play extremely well at times. I mean, they're 6-1 overall. They're 2-1 in conference, but that loss came in a rivalry game to a team that I think a lot of people don't feel are playing particularly great football right now. What's Oklahoma's deal right now?
I mean, they're great. They have a great defense. Definitely. I mean, it's kind of the inverse of the end of their Big 12 era where they were absolute Swiss cheese, all offense, no defense. I think that Texas loss, the loss to Texas, John Mateer, their quarterback, was coming off the injury from the Auburn game. He probably wasn't 100%. Where I think you're going to see a much healthier if he stay, pending the next few games. John Mateer. In Tuscaloosa than you saw at the State Fair, Texas, that day. So a more dangerous team than you would expect. You saw, I mean, They're clearly clever with their substitutions. They know how to figure out some loopholes. I'm just making a joke about the Auburn game. Um, uh, don't kill me.
Yeah.
But I mean,
Look, you're not the. By the way, Lane Kiffin also just some fun lore drop on this. Lane Kiffin also this week, I believe, sort of. It's impossible to know if he was joking or not because it's Lane Kiffin,
blanket.
but sort of made comments about Oklahoma being very good at stealing signs on defense. So there's just all kinds of there's all kinds of chicanery. I think that this Oklahoma team is being accused of.
Yeah, I mean, it's a team that's capable of. I mean, they looked very good. They beat Michigan, beat up on Michigan. I think they've looked fine in every other game. I feel like if they can continue, if it's a one-loss team coming in, two one-loss teams in this game, that'd be a great matchup for the final second to the final home game in the conference play
Sure.
before the mighty Mercer Bears come to town as a prelude to the Iron Bowl.
Yeah, and so look, the other thing I want to talk about, and obviously it's very early. I'm not telling you to book a hotel room in Atlanta. Anybody that's listening to this, but look, Alabama's in good shape right now in terms of the SEC race. They're one of two teams undefeated in the conference right now with Texas A&M.
They don't
And
play.
honestly, I think if you look at November, I mean, we just talked about there's some tough games left for Alabama. I think for a lot of the top half of the conference right now, I don't know that Alabama would trade with anybody else schedule wise. I think everybody else maybe has an even tougher road down the stretch than Alabama does, at least out of these contenders. But I want to talk about this a little bit, Michael, because they're the way that the league works now. Um, there's an awful lot of teams that for old school fans like me think it's weird that Alabama doesn't play this team this year. And a lot of those guys happened to be in firmly in the race for the SEC championship right now. Texas A&M and Ole Miss definitely among them. Um, you know, but there's a lot of other teams that are absolutely still in this. Georgia's still in it. Missouri is definitely still in the running there. Texas certainly could get in, as you just said. Oklahoma and Vanderbilt only have one loss
Don't forget
each.
Vanderbilt. Yep.
Now this would be this is sort of my hypothetical question for you. If you put yourself in the shoes of of the Alabama head coach, would you rather play a team that you haven't that's not on your schedule in the SEC championship game, or would you rather have a rematch against a team that you have already beaten in that game?
Well, I'm gonna be difficult and say which team. You can't just say any team. They're not
Let's
all the
say, I
same.
mean, look, it's going to be a good team regardless. It's going to be one
Yeah.
of these teams, one of these
Well, what
ranked
kind of matchup
opponents.
is it? Is it Georgia?
Sure.
I mean, yeah, it's a good question because I mean, presumably you've already beaten that team at this point. Um, I mean, I guess it could really. There are only a few that could really be, unless it's Oklahoma.
Unless it's Oklahoma, right? Which
Which would,
again,
would
that's also possible. There could be
yeah.
a rematch like 3 weeks later after the Oklahoma game.
There are all kinds of scenarios. I mean, that's the kind of thing. Is like there's a wide range right now of
Right. We
possibilities
can't
without.
really know anymore until the last possible minute who's going to be in that game.
Yeah, yeah. No, I mean, it's a good question. I mean, I think A&M is kind of a matchup concern in some sense because they've got a quarterback who can move around. Um, it's a good question.
How about I'll put it this way? Do you have a out of that group, do you have a team that would be the one you would like to play the least for the SEC championship? The
If I
matchup
was
nightmare
Alabama,
out of everybody.
yeah, I don't know if there's like one. That's the thing I think about this season is like, I don't know if there's one team that stands so far above the rest that that we're. I think there are a lot of 1A, 1B, 1C, one. There are a lot of teams right there where there isn't the clear, way above the rest of them to where I think they can beat any of those teams. They clearly have.
Mhm.
Um, I Yeah, I don't think there's anyone that they're terrified of. If I had to
No,
be,
And I also think, like you said, that I mean, even out of these last 4 that Alabama won, there were moments in all of those games where it felt like it could have gone the other way, and
Sure.
Alabama ends up executing better and making some great play calls. But like there were sort of coin flip moments, I think, in all of those games where you could see it going the other way if there was a
Sure.
rematch.
Yeah. No, and that's what makes it. I think that's what makes it kind of interesting these days. That it's not all 59-7 games, and it's not, every week is interesting. I know not everybody would want to have interesting games every week. People want to have that Vanderbilt of 2017 back on the schedule kind of thing. But it makes it fun and makes it exciting. Um, I think it's a really interesting year. I think every week is full of intrigue, when you don't have a predetermined or not predetermined, but a pre.
That's a whole different accusation there.
Yeah, we're not talking about scripts here. Where people know what's going to happen.
Yeah,
Where
sure.
the talent is that swayed.
This does feel like maybe the I don't know if parody is exactly the word that I'm going for here, but I have a hard time remembering any time where, I mean, I'm going down the list, 2, 4, 6, 8 teams that I just mentioned are just absolute, like, within one game of being in the SEC championship, and we're heading into, Alabama's last game of October. It's pretty wild. It's pretty wild it's this. I mean, look, if what you're describing the other way, right, where we kind of know who's going to win every game, it's never close, it's never interesting. That has ended up being what the Big Ten has become this season, and I agree. I don't care about any of those games. I'm not looking forward to any of them that I see on the schedule. I mean, Michigan, Ohio State's basically the only game in the Big Ten that I am excited to see for the rest of the season. Almost every SEC game looks interesting to me, maybe with the possible exception of the games involving Kentucky or Mississippi State for the rest of the year. And I'd even put the Egg Bowl on there. I'd put it on
Well,
the
the Egg
list.
Bowl is eternally interesting. I don't
Yeah.
care what their records are. It's always one of my favorite games to watch. That is a supreme rivalry. That
Yeah. And could have interesting stakes down the road here. So
it's even better when it doesn't have stakes. I don't. No stakes Iron Bowl or Egg Bowl is the best Egg Bowl because
yeah.
that is it.
Yeah, for sure. All right. Well, Michael, thanks for running through all of this with me and helping me. Look, sometimes I gotta take it all in for a second. And no disrespect to South Carolina intended here, but this felt like a good moment to do it, going into, these sort of final stretch of SEC games, the last chunk of the season, if you will. It's gone by so fast, and yet there's a lot of it left potentially. So it'll be interesting to see how all this plays out. You guys can find Michael's column about how Hugh Freeze probably needs to be fired over at AL.com. It's much more nuanced than that, but that's would you say that's a fair gist of it?
Yeah, I'd say yeah. Especially heading into the big game with Hugh Freeze, Bobby Petrino, all
Honestly, I
time.
talk about games I'm excited to watch. But Bobby Petrino potentially forcing an Auburn coaching change is a really fascinating setup, I would say.
Among other storylines.
Yeah, for sure. There's those two coaches have kind of a similar vibe in certain ways. But yeah, so go check that out. Go check out all of Michael's work and all of our beat coverage of Alabama football and our coverage of the Alabama South Carolina game this weekend. And you can find Beat Everyone wherever you get your podcasts, as always. Thanks for listening. Share it with your friends. Let them know about the show. And I am Matt Scalici, sitting in for Ben Flanagan this week. We will see you guys again on the next episode.